r/ask Reddit. What is a myth that you wish people would stop repeating? That Obama doesn't know what he is doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Barack Obama is undertaking a systematic effort to change this country, to make America more like the rest of the world. That Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Barack Obama is undertaking a systematic effort to change this country, to make America more like the rest of the world. Seriously, we need to dispel once and for all this fiction that Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Barack Obama is undertaking a systematic effort to change this country, to make America more like the rest of the world. The one that NASA spent millions of dollars inventing a pen that could write in space, and the Russians simply used a pencil. NASA had a special pen made that was something like $5, super cheap, and worked. They couldn't use a pencil because graphite would duck with everything. The Russian used the pen that NASA does too. http://www. Scientific American.com article fact or fiction. NASA spent millions figuring out how to return their astronauts safely from orbit in their capsule. The Soviets just told their guy to skydive back to Earth and lied about it later. Nice try, Felix Baumgartner. That veterans are heroes. Some truly are. But as a veteran, I can tell you some of the shittiest people I've ever met were in the army. My wife and I were just talking about this last night. Her dad was in the Navy during Vietnam. He doesn't like to talk about it in any way, and he is visibly uncomfortable when people acknowledge his service on Veterans Day. I think the reason is because he is thoroughly aware that he went into the Navy to dodge the draft and keep from becoming infantry. Instead, he went to a safe position in Guantanamo. Yep, in my personal experience, good veterans don't like being thanked for their service. Bad veterans feed off of it. As an employee at a pet store, that fish other animals will only grow to the size of their enclosure. No, they keep growing and then they get sick or die because your cheap ass won't get them a proper habitat. Well, technically they didn't grow bigger than the enclosure. Okay, technically, they just die. Ringo was not a good drummer. False. Ringo wasn't a flashy drummer. He was in fact a human metronome and kept almost perfect time. Anyone who has ever played in a band will tell you 10 times out of 10 that is vastly more important than a flashy drummer. Usually someone will immediately post Ringo isn't even the best drummer in the Beatles. John Lennon. John said nothing of the sort. Neither did Paul. It was said by a comedian 3 years after John was killed and has been misattributed for years. People forget Ringo was the only Beatle to be successful before joining the group. He was playing in one of the most popular pop acts in Britain at the time. George Martin always said they were incredibly lucky to get him. He's also the only one to get a decent job after music. I can never decide between humans only use 10% of their brains and scientists thought bees couldn't fly. What is that second one? I've never heard that before. The idea is that if you crunch the numbers in a really simplistic aerodynamic model, you come to the conclusion that bumblebees shouldn't be able to generate enough lift with their tiny wings and huge bodies. All this really demonstrates is that aerodynamic models need to account for things like flexing and the complex motions of insect wings. That some lady won a ridiculous lawsuit against McDonald's for hot coffee. Yes, she did. But people fail to mention the coffee in question was 190F and caused third-degree burns. Also McD's was being douchy and refused to settle for way less money than she ended up winning. https://en Wikipedia org WikiLeaks v. McDonald %27's restaurants. All the poor lady was looking for was a sorry, and here's some money to cover the third-degree burn treatment of your crotch and upper legs. After seeing the photos of her legs, I wanted to pass out. When she spilled that coffee on her sweatpants, it was a horror show on the skin. That Marilyn Monroe was the equivalent of today's size 12, or 14 or 16 or whatever random dress size people throw out. This woman was 5 feet 5 inches and 118 pounds when she started modeling. A size 12 in the mid 1940s was definitely not a size 12 at Loft or Chico's or whatever. She gained some weight and lost some weight periodically throughout her career, but she was at most a contemporary size 4 or 6. That people today could even think that she was plus size shows just how screwed up perceptions of women's bodies are. This woman was on the thin side of a healthy BMI, and we're going to say that she was full-figured or big? No. She was downright skinny with hips and a big bust. Even during her time her figure was considered unsuited to fashion modeling. And today most fashion models today are at least 5 minutes and 10 seconds and 115 pounds or less. The screwy, crazy relationship women have to their weight should not be fixed by replacing one ideal body with another. Idolizing different kinds of bodies does nothing because it ignores the underlying problem of focusing so much attention on what constitutes an ideal aesthetic weight. This is not fat people stuff. Young women should understand that looking like any model or actress, plus sized or no, is a bad start for hitching your wagon. For reference, this professional wrestler slash model is 5 feet 5 and 120 pounds. She and Marilyn Monroe have almost identical stats. However, she has way more muscle and is skinnier even though the weight is the same. Not that Marilyn Monroe was big. That vaccines cause autism. Hey, I actually have a rather informative website about this. http:// how to vaccines cause autism. Edit. Bathes in comment karma. How do I cite this for a paper? My friend's son, veteran, committed suicide the other day. God has a plan. Right? Even if this is your thought process, it's a super insensitive thing to say. I hate when people say stuff like this. Just recently there was a freak accident on a highway in my state where a woman was killed by a manhole cover that somehow got dislodged and flew into her windshield. The news was interviewing some guy who was on the road at the same time and almost got hit by it, and he kept going on about how God saved me and blah blah blah. It just seemed like such a shitty thing to say when someone was actually killed in the accident. That your tongue is divided into certain zones that experience different tastes. I was taught it for most of my schooling and it's even in some textbooks. But it's just straight up not true. There may be different concentrations of taste buds in different parts of your tongue, but it doesn't affect your ability to experience different tastes. Here's an article about it from Yale Scientific. I always thought this was bullshit from experience, but it's great to know it has been disproven. Thanks. All Democrats are liberal socialists and all Republicans are racist fascists. There was a great article in The Onion about this. I thought it was pretty hilariously spot on. Link. That's pretty much every day on Reddit for me as a conservative. Why do you hate brown people? But, I'm a brown person. That Texas is the only state allowed to fly its flag at the same height as the U.S. flag? No. Texas might be the only state arrogant enough to do it, but no one's going to flag jail if they choose to do so. I live in Texas. Most places keep the Texas flag lower than the American flag. I've only seen them at the same height once or twice. I live in Texas too, and I agree that I rarely see it happen, but I hear people say it all the time. As of the 28th of September 11:30 AM Eastern Standard Time, I do not give Facebook or any entities associated with Facebook permission to use my pictures, information, or posts, both past and future. By this statement, I give notice to Facebook it is strictly forbidden to disclose, copy, distribute, or take any other action against me based on this profile and/or its contents. The content of this profile is private and confidential information. The violation of privacy can be punished by law. UCC 1308 11308 103 and the Rome Statute. Note: Facebook is now a public entity. All members must post a note like this. If you prefer, you can copy and paste this version. If you do not publish a statement at least once, it will be tactically allowing the use of your photos, as well as the information contained in the profile status updates. Do not share. You must copy and paste. I like the use of tactically as opposed to tacitly. I am always bothered by the myth that daddy long legs are the most venomous spiders in the world, but that their fangs are too short to bite you. Every part of that story is wrong. What many people refer to as daddy long legs aren't even spiders. They are their own separate order of arachnids. How the hell can fangs not be long enough to break the skin? And if you're going to go through all of the trouble evolving highly toxic venom, why would you evolve such a terrible delivery system? The non-spider daddy long legs don't have any sort of fangs, so they cannot bite at all, and the spider, sometimes called by that name, is totally harmless to humans, though it could theoretically bite. Scene C proof. The Mythbusters tested this. One of them, can't remember if it was Jamie or Adam, let one bit him, absolutely nothing happened to him. If I remember correctly, it took like 15 minutes and dozens of spiders to even get one bite. That was Adam, and he is a brave guy. Not that he was ever in any danger, but for letting all those goddamn spiders walk all over his arm. That the problem with America is a bunch of lazy people taking advantage of the welfare food stamp system. Damned CEOs. Shaving will make your hair grow faster and come in thicker. Because if that were true, we'd be manscaping with machetes at this point. Are we not? No one thought the earth was flat in Columbus's time. In fact, every sensible royal court rightly disagreed with his estimate of the diameter of the earth. Columbus was actually using bad data, which blundered on unit conversions to shop around a grossly underestimated diameter of the earth. That's why he landed in the Caribbean and thought he was in Asia. We didn't just know the earth was round in the 15th C. We had accurate estimates for the diameter for thousands of years before that. Here's a demonstration of what I'm talking about by the mathematician Terence Tao, 2006 Fields Medal winner. Length 8 minutes 20s. https://yahoo b/7ne0grfems t equals 9m57c. Would really just love it if people stopped spreading the notion that a flat earth belief was pervasive in the 15th C. People in general love to assume that our ancestors were bumbling retards. It's the exact same logic they used to claim there's something weird about the pyramids or Stonehenge. Apparently piling stones was far too complex a task for humans until about 200 years ago. Edit. People seem to think that I'm implying the pyramids aren't impressive. They absolutely are amazing feats of engineering, but they were well within the ability of ancient humans to make. You don't get it. It's a pyramid. I mean, how could multiple cultures across the globe figure out big part on the bottom, small part on the top, unless there's a conspiracy? This might be an unpopular one for Reddit, but the idea that the newer generation is oversensitive, it just seems a bit ridiculous to label an entire generation as oversensitive, because, in an increasingly progressive society, this generation is the one that finally has the means and common sense to challenge deeply institutionalized inequality and bigotry. I just hate the idea that someone is labeled as a kitten for being offended by something that is subtly racist or sexist, etc. Regardless of whether or not it's malicious in intent. The whole back in my day people didn't get offended over blah 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 rationale just doesn't make sense to me. Edit. Wording edit 2. THX4 gold edit 3. THX4 gold again, and thanks for the conversation. I love reading well thought counter arguments. It's my intent to remain open-minded and take everyone's point of view into consideration. And Reddit really is a great platform to do just that. Well, that's because back in their day they could spout racism, sexism, homophobia etc. and everyone would nod their heads. Challenge the opinion of an older person today on these issues and you'll find out all about sensitivity. Also, people seem completely unaware just how whingy the 50s to 80s decades were. I mean, they had near constant social crusades against songs, movies, books, etc. for anything that was seen as too naughty or violent for people's fragile minds. So it really annoys me when people bitch about the current generation with bullshit storming arguments about SJW or how they are too fragile, when it was the pre-internet generations which take the award for complaining. That if you change your opinion on something you are a flip-flopper. Opinions should change when you gain new information or experience. Love that one. Didn't some politician say something like, "You are a political flip-flopper. The facts changed, so I changed my mind. What would you have me do?" That the Apollo moon landings were faked. I think the Russians would have called BS on Apollo if they didn't actually go. You know, they would have been watching and listening like a hawk. On the other hand, assuming the Russians didn't detect a moon landing, it's possible they would stay quiet on the fear that a moon landing did happen and they'd be admitting the limitations of their tracking capability. They would have a very hard time proving it necessarily didn't happen. They could only say, "Well, I didn't see anything." food trends in general. Detox diets make me so angry. Make me so angry. I am sure a colonic irrigation would fix that. This will be a bit adult in nature, but the question asked for myths. The idea that the shape of a woman's vulva, specifically the amount of labia minora showing, indicates how many sexual partners she's had, or how tight or loose she may be. The idea is prevalent among young men, and it's damaging to young women's psyches when they already have to deal with a murder scene coming from their 7 days a month, along with plenty of other shit to deal with that comes with being a woman. Saying more sex stretches out your vagina is like saying eating a lot will stretch out your mouth. Unless you're doing something really wrong, it's just not going to happen. That whole thing about having more sex stretches out your vagina is when people talk about it, they only ever talk about women who have multiple partners. Like if a woman has a lot of sex with one person, no one ever assumes she's loose. But if she has the same amount of sex with multiple people, she is loose. Deoxygenated blood is blue inside your body. No, it is not. Blood is red. However, if we had copper instead of iron in our blood, it would be blue. Edit. Copper, not copper. I have big thymbaitis. How would copper get inside my blood? This month has 5 Fridays, 5 Saturdays, and 5 Sundays. This is called Moneybags and happens only once every 835 years. There are only 14 possible calendars for a given year. All you need to know in order to determine which one to use is what day of the week is Jan 1 on and whether or not it is a leap year. We cycle through all 14 with regular consistency. This reminds me of a time last year when the post, "This year Halloween will fall on Friday the 13th or whatever it was," appeared and everyone shared it. Facepum. That police have to reveal themselves if someone asks if they are police. Ducking badger. Natural organic is always better for you. No, it's not. Arsenic is natural. You don't know about the new artisan arsenic and arugula salad at Whole Foods? You haven't lived. Simply cyanide. Edit. Because, you know, every edible product has to have the word simply on it. I work retail, so I see this constantly. That nuclear power is dangerous. It kills fewer people per unit of energy produced and has very low environmental impact, even compared to wind and solar. Nuclear power kills less people per MWH, is cheaper per MWH, uses less space and, other than wind, is associated with less CO2 emissions, and a power station lasts a lot longer than a wind turbine's 15 years. The dolphins are the only animals to have sex for fun. Oh, and that being cold gives you a cold. I hate that. They also kill for fun. Humans are the only animals to do both at the same time for fun. No, so much a myth, but those bloody Facebook statuses that warn you'll start being charged for your account. The same idiots who post those lifetime McDonald's voucher things that are clearly phishing and other scam sites. Tomorrow is the one. 564,293. 0th day that Facebook has been active. Zuckerberg said that he would share his entire wealth with everyone who shares this picture. I don't know if it's true, but better safe than sorry. Does Kanye know this? I feel like Kanye needs to know about this. A lot of Korean people believe if you leave a fan on in a closed room you'll get hypothermia, or suffocate, and die. Most electric fans sold there actually come with a timer so you can't turn them on and leave them on. I actually just read somewhere this afternoon that fan death is used as an euphemism for suicide. So saying somebody died because they slept with their fan on actually means. I'm not sure how reliable this is, but it sounds plausible. Edit. Here's a link to an li5 thread on it. https:/reddit.com/explain/5 comments/1pdqz0/li5. Where did the notion of Korean fan death come? If your roommate dies, your college gives you a 4.0 GPA, straight A's, or something like that. There is no college in the US that has this policy. I'm not saying that the college won't try to help you in some way to overcome the trauma, but they aren't going to just hand you a degree. I'm actually surprised that more colleges don't try to smash this myth into the dirt due to a fear that desperate kids might try to kill their roommate, or if someone decided to commit suicide to help someone else. Obviously they would already need to be in a bad place. Edit. Fixed wording to make it make more sense. I work at a university. This is actually something called tabula rasa, or clean slate. Different schools have different names for it. What happens is, if something like that happened, or your family died, or whatever emergency or mental stress, the university will simply forgive your poor performance for that year or semester. It's not a 4-0 at all. It's just forgiven. And while you may retain the credit if you pass the course, those grades will not count towards your GPA. At our university, it's all or nothing as well. Let's say you get an A and 3 Fs one semester, and get tabula rasa. That means all of that semester's grades are excluded from the cumulative GPA, including the A grade. It's something you need to apply for, and it is reviewed by a committee before it is granted. I reckon that this myth is probably based off of a tabula rasa type policy. Detoxing is the only way to achieve ultimate health. Suck a dong if you think this. Your liver and kidneys' sole responsibilities involve detoxifying your body. Starving yourself of everything but wheatgrass and green tea will not magically make you the picture of health. It's all a fantasy devised by magazine columnists to fill their pages every week with the latest detox fad. As long as you look after your body and feed it what it needs, there is no need to detox. I can't stand this one either. Your body detoxes itself every time you pee and poop and sweat. That thousands of years ago, people only lived to be 35 years old. That one's kinda understandable, given that it's mostly taught as the average age was X, and they don't include the somewhat vital detail of the number of deaths at a very young age, which inevitably brings the average down. That the Daily Mail is a newspaper. It always pains me how much I see Daily Mail articles upvoted highly on world news. Idiocracy was a documentary. We're getting so stupid. No, by pretty much any objective measure you want to use, we're getting smarter. IQ tests are continually being adjusted to correct for increasingly intelligent generations. It's increased 24 points over the last century alone. See the Flynn effect. Illiteracy rates have plummeted to the point where illiteracy even among the minority communities were non-existent by the mid-1980s. Competency in both math and reading improved dramatically from 1970 to 2014 for children aged 8 through 13. High school graduation rates, and higher, have improved dramatically, from less than 50% during the 1960s to over 80% today. Even if you want to say it's not intelligence that we're lacking but quality decision-making skills, that doesn't hold up either. We've seen steep decline in teen birth rates, almost halved since 1960s. Teen drug use, alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana all down since the early 1970s. And abortion rates decreased steadily since 1981 following a brief surge following Roe v. Wade. Same thing with violence. Violence may be getting more media coverage today, but it's been steadily decreasing more or less throughout the entire world throughout all of human history. GMOs are bad for you. If they were, we wouldn't be living as long as we are and global food supply would be much less than it is now. You look at the stars. Wage gap and we only use 10% of our brain. Depends how the wage gap is stated. It's hard to argue against something like average salary for women is X% of the average salary for men when it's just a product of numbers. Interpretation always gets tricky, and that's when you might want to start controlling for confounding variables. And, of course, even with all of this, talking about the wage gap doesn't even tell the entire story about gender in the workplace, especially between different fields. The wage gap isn't a myth, it's just that people don't properly understand the reasons behind it. Starvation mode. It's not that this doesn't exist, just that people have changed its meaning, in a self-serving way, so that it's now wildly inaccurate. Starvation mode is not if I don't eat enough my body will go into starvation mode, hold all of the calories, and make me gain weight. Therefore, I must eat more, and more, and more, lest I starve. Or the myth that if you starve yourself of calories, it will burn muscle and not fat. The first problem is not understanding what starvation actually is, which is consuming less than 50% of your body's caloric needs over an extended period of time. Not my body wants 2,800 calories today and I only ate 2,000. I'm going into starvation mode. More like, Your TDEE is 1200 and you're eating less than 600 every day for weeks. Also, losing muscle rather than fat when eating a caloric deficit isn't true either. Your body will naturally burn fat as fuel so long as it's there. More conspiracy theory than myth, but that the fluoride in the water supply makes us easier to control. Yep, people are angrier and harder to keep controlled when their teeth are falling out. Steel beams don't have to completely melt for the damn building to collapse. Jet fuel can't melt dank memes. Being out in cold weather will make you sick. A little girl who I teach, her mother is very insistent in this. She says very frequently that we are not putting enough clothing on her at the end of the day, and her bus is too cold. Our school's buses are heated, and she will get sick. It's to the point that we worry more about her overheating than anything else. Snowpants, sweater, coat, hat, scarf, mittens. Every day. Recently she has been sick and has missed a lot of school. The day she returned, her mother called to insist that we do not take her outside, or she will get sick again. It has been a very warm winter in my city, and this was a particularly balmy day. Like, many kids were taking their coats off because running around was making them sweaty. Later in the day, this little girl became sick with what was clearly a stomach bug. Her previous illness had been respiratory, certainly unrelated to diarrhea. When I called mom to let her know, she said it's probably because she goes outside at school. Well, no, just no. And besides the fact that cold weather doesn't give you diarrhea, and lots of kids just get sick a lot, maybe it's her shitty, unvaried, fruit and veggie devoid diet that has tanked her immune system. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.